Warm welcome to the Laptop and Desktop Workgroup call on 2025 on the 12th of March. Um, it's been a bit of a time zone confusion, but we are starting regardless. We have the usual announcement that this session is being recorded. Just a quick reminder, this is being put up on YouTube afterwards, and if anyone doesn't want to be recorded, then please turn off your camera, turn off your microphone, and you will not be in the recording. So, I already said it. This time it is basically welcome to the great confusion of time zones. I'm very sorry in the run up to this call that with our diverse change of time zones as they're happening right now over the next few days, we actually had a time zone change in the United States and, or in the Americas, probably you could argue, and the time zone shifts or the daylight saving time shifts for the EMEA region are still coming up, and now we have a bit of a disconnect with the UTC time zone. And fortunately, we chose to start a little early, so we don't have anyone waiting unnecessarily. But I understand that obviously it caused a bit of confusion because I rather took my time with updating the Google Calendar. So I'm happy that at least some group of people, of all the participants that were interested in joining, were able to do so. And I expect maybe with a little bit of luck, there might be even more people coming into the call later after probably an hour for those who were scheduling things slightly later. In terms of housekeeping, quick reminder, I want us all, or I think we all want us to follow the FreeBSD's project's community code of conduct. I also want to remind all of us who have not been in the calls before that it is completely fine to interrupt me if you have questions, if you want to interject or ask or say something, then please feel free to do so. If other people are speaking aside from me, then I would like to ask you to please use the virtual hand to raise your hand and indicate that you want to say something so everyone has the chance to complete their sentences and complete their statements without being interrupted. And we want to give everyone the chance to finish whatever they are interested in bringing to the table. Well, we have our usual agenda that we are following. Basically, I think we've already seen this in the past, so I'm not gonna dig into much detail here. We are following the same approach that we had on the last call, that we're going to start with the review on the minutes and a couple of news items, move into the foundations project, and then work towards the worksheet. And with that, let's check out the minutes. I have the minutes open right over here, which are being loaded in this moment. And we're gonna switch over here. Just verifying that you guys are, no, you're not seeing them yet. 1 second. Share this tab instead. Yes, now it's working. All right. So these are the minutes we wrote up for the last call. It was a very diverse set of attendees, as you can see. There was even Deb who joined and we had a great conversation. I was at the end of the call off recording, but so this is obviously also a high recommendation from my side. If you're watching this only on YouTube, there is definitely a good reason to join the calls online, because you have a chance to ask and talk to all the participants even after the recording, and there's also very often interesting tidbits to glean into the various things that are going on behind the scenes. So during the last call, we talked about the governance, and I have to admit that is still something that is going on. We still have that. I still have the survey up. I did prepare it. I did not send it out yet, but I will after the call, because we realized that the APEC community has obviously difficulties in joining a call that is set up as it is right now, time-wise. Fortunately, with the daylight savings time shifts, we will be shifting naturally towards an earlier time, but I think there is still opportunity to move things up slightly earlier. and with a survey, we will figure things out what works for the majority. And we walked through a couple news items. These are in the slide deck. I will not reiterate those. And we talked about the laptop project, about the status of on December and January. Briefly talked about the state of things that Noor is working on Thunderbolt 3 and USB4. Briefly touched on Bluetooth, where Björn mentioned that he managed to commit a patch that people were waiting for. We briefly touched on the Chinese input about a talk that Charlie submitted for Birds of a Feather for BSD CAN, which I think, if I remember correctly, is coming up. Wireless updates, work on the documentation. Then we had someone join on an issue and ask questions about WPA. We briefly touched on the graphical installer, and then I presented or talked about the work that I started with the kernel module. Actually, I will be giving an update on this one today also, and refer you guys also to something that basically is in the slide deck. I'm not going to dig into that very deep here, but basically it was also a summary or summarization of statements on the FreeBSD forums that was compiled as a SWOT analysis that is also giving a nice indication of where we have strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats in terms of FreeBSD use on laptops and desktops. And as we can see here, here was the mistake. Here is where it all started. It is not 6 p.m. UTC. It is actually 5 p.m. So I'm going to fix this now. Obviously not making much difference now, but we're already on the call. And the action items that came out of this was basically me setting up the survey. I have that now. I will communicate that after this call. And yes, I did review, while writing the minutes, I reviewed the various links that were posted also to the chat and added that to the worksheet to enrich what is going on. And with that, I will basically move back to the state of things and ask you guys whether there is anything you believe needs adding, or if there's anything that is missing in your opinion. If anyone has anything, then please either speak up or raise your hands now. Otherwise, we're gonna move on. All right. No questions, no inputs, I suppose, or some people might be having audio issues for the time being. Let's move on. Where are we? Well, we already did the minutes in regards to the survey, as I said. I set up the survey. Actually, I think I have that. I have that in here somewhere. Maybe it's coming up later on. Our governance, we have that governance charter up on the wiki, and I will still invite you guys to review that. If there's anything you believe needs changing, then please let us know. Let's talk about it during the calls. And yes, we still have the topic open in terms of how do we orphan things, or how do we deal with orphaned items on our worksheets, whether they're on the enterprise working group or the laptop and desktop workgroup, because sometimes we have overlaps, as we realized. This is still pending. Maybe Alice, if you have like 5 minutes after the call, I would suggest maybe let's take a look at the best time to figure things out. All right. News. Schatz? Ich höre alles, was du da tust, gell? All right. Where is my notepad? Here it is. So, quick reminder, yes, I have compiled a couple of news items here. I want to point out that these news items are open to everyone. If you guys have anything that you want to bring to the table, then please do so. Either send an email to the mailing list or send an email to me directly. Everything both is fine. I invite you guys to basically join in if there's relevant news that we want to show to the world. This is obviously very much focused on things that are not explicitly already in the scope of the work group. So if there's things outside of the work streams, then I think this is the right place to show these things. And This week, I want to point out there's a little less news than the time before, like the last call, because of the change in days. We have a bit of a compressed time schedule, and I think that shows in everything that we do on this call. But we still have a couple items. And the first thing that I think is important to point out, there is some improvements on wireless that are happening, and I believe it was mentioned also on the past call, but I think it is worthwhile to point this out to every participant or those people who are only watching the recording, that it is a great idea to join also not just the desktop the desktop mailing list, but also the wireless mailing list, because there's a bunch also happening there. And if you're interested in what is going on around around the work regarding wireless, then this is the place to go, and also the place to go if you have questions on what is going on. There's been also a couple experiences shared on the use of AMD Ryzen on framework computers. It works pretty well, particularly if you use anything beyond 14.2 stable, if I remember correctly. Just like the last call, I highly recommend subscribing to the mailing list, looking at the forums. These are great places to figure things out. There was also a great conversation about CUDA getting set up and that it is working in Linux KPI-based jails. You could argue whether that is native or not, but it is working, which I think is a great improvement to where we were a couple months back. There's also been hardware-related news, and yes, I keep reiterating on framework, but I figured because of the fact that the framework notebooks are one of the ones that I think have a fixed bench place in terms of the FreeBSD Foundation's laptop project. It is interesting to also note that there's also now desktop systems that they are manufacturing. They are probably not yet ready to run with FreeBSD, but obviously there's a good chance on the horizon that eventually this is also going to be a very interesting option for us with FreeBSD. So, quick reminder, yes, something that I really wanted to point out. Well, is it a news item? I don't know. I could have probably mentioned this also, or I will probably mention it later on. So I'm going to jump over this really quickly. I will bring it up later when I talk about my work with the kernel module. Right. So, and with that, pretty quickly, we're already on top of the laptop project by the FreeBSD Foundation. Alice is already here with us, I see. And Alice, I would hand over to you. I will just move into your slides and hand over to you. Can you guys hear Alice? Because I cannot hear her. Okay, is that just me or?
No, I can't hear her either.
Okay. No problem. We'll figure it out.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, my phone decided to get involved. I was like, why isn't this working? It's not responding. And then I saw my phone screen. And I was like, yeah, you little so-and-so. Okay. Okay, introduction to the laptop support and usability improvement project that FreeBSD Foundation is running. We're looking to deliver a package of improved or new functionality for FreeBSD that will ensure that FreeBSD runs well out of the box on a range of personal computing devices. In terms of goals, we're looking at accelerating developer and corporate adoption, improving endpoint security for organizational users, improving the committer experience, and reducing the barrier to adoption. Next slide, please. So exciting new updates this month. So we have the January project report. I don't know if you're able to click on that, Chris. Will it work?
Mm-hmm. Is that it?
Perfect.
Oh, yeah, all right.
Yeah, so this is on the project GitHub. You can't see, but it is on the Foundation GitHub organization under a repo called proj-laptop. Now, I think, Chris, you normally distribute the slides, don't you?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, so people would be able to find it through the link on the slides. And as you can see, if you scroll down gently, we have, oh, I was just going to highlight the headings there. So is that the first one? Yes. Okay, so completed in January is some technical debt pay down on package. And then if you scroll down a bit, you can see we have the Linux 6.7 drivers in review. Then we have some progress updates on things that are still ongoing, power management. Then we've got some Wi-Fi updates, performance updates, audio, Intel Wi-Fi, webcam, and then there's some thanks at the bottom. So that's there's a lot of work that's going on. Some of it's being delivered, some of it's still in progress. But I invite you to all go and take a look at that. I actually did link to it in the spreadsheet that we use for tracking for the Laptop and Desktop Working Group. So it's in that matrix as well if you want to pick it up from there. Okay.
There's
Thank you,
also
Chris.
this alternative view, if I remember correctly. Maybe did you want to show that as well? Because that is also linked, if I've seen this right.
Yeah, that's right. So the proj-laptop is not where we're managing code, but it is where we're managing work items. And you can also go and explore that interactively. You might have to learn a few of the tricks of how GitHub runs it, does projects, but feel free to go in there. I'm pretty sure you won't be able to destroy anything. So you can go in there and filter by label, or whatever you prefer to do. Iterations a month, so 1 is January, 2 is February, etc. And we've got quarter milestones. But to be honest, we're not strictly adhering to those because this work is not highly predictable. So some of it's taking longer or less long than we thought. All right, can we go back to the slides, please? All right. So as always, we do want your input. We're trying to work on providing a good structure for that input. So to that point, we've created a whole bunch, how many is that? 8 discussion threads in the desktop mailing list. And these are they're not one per issue, but they're one per group of issues or one per area of functionality. So you can see it's hopefully self-explanatory. We've got power, hardware, audio, graphics, Wi-Fi, system management, which is things like installing, and security and user testing. So I would certainly encourage folks to either go to the desktop mailing list and just seek those out, or you can click on them from this slide, or you can click on them from the spreadsheet. You did it. Awesome. Yeah.
Can I jump in here with a question? Because one of the things that I was wondering, obviously, I imagine there's people, I don't know, either on the call or watching the recording afterwards, and they realize, oops, actually, I want to, participate in that conversation, but they're not subscribed to the mailing list yet. And then I imagine they did not get that email. Is there a canonical way to reply to that thread, even if you were not yet subscribed? Is there, does anybody on the call know how to properly do this? I was Googling before the call, but I was not really certain what the proper way is. Is there anywhere any kind of documentation? Maybe if you can put that in the chat, I would highly appreciate that.
I'm not, based on other mailing lists, I think if you try to email it and you're not on it, it will just tell you you're not subscribed to the list and you have to subscribe.
Right. The thing is, obviously, you can subscribe now afterwards, I'm just wondering, because I think the idea with these emails is that we actually, because as it happened here already, there's like one email on hardware discussion thread, and then there was already a reply to that, so we can actually see, okay, this is about this hardware discussion thread, and I imagine this is it would be the most helpful if we kept all the relevant discussion on this particular email thread, but maybe it's okay to, I don't know, spread out. I imagine there is probably a way to follow up on that email even if you did not get that. I was Googling around, and there were descriptions about, I don't know, ways to receive emails even afterwards, after you were Bjorn, please, yeah, go ahead.
In theory, you can download the raw emails from mail archives FreeBSD if you go in there for the right year, month, and mailing list, and then you have it locally in your mail usage, and then it's justified.
Oh, okay. So I see.
Too complicated, but
yeah. Okay, I see. Mm-hmm. Okay. Sorry.
The archive also has a show original text of this message link, which will give you the raw.
Right. There it is.
The raw, and I mean, you can get the message ID out of there, and in reply to it, depending on your mail agent, but it's going to be kind of awkward, I think, for many people, or for most people. I would say that if you just post a message with the same subject,
right,
we'll see it.
That it connects. Yeah. Okay, makes sense. Yeah. Just keep the header basically. Okay. The subject line. Yeah.
Yeah, specifically the FF-laptop-LSU identifier will ensure that we notice it.
Yeah. Okay, that one basically. All right. Perfect. Okay. Got it.
Good questions, Chris. I hadn't realized that was. It makes sense now you explain it. All right. Should we go back to the slide? And then I think, is there another one, or is that the last one? Might be the last one. Oh no, one more.
Yep, one more.
All right. Yeah, so I think I've mentioned this before, but we're conscious that it's not just functionality, it's how that functionality is provided to the user and how it all works together. So a volunteer called Ben has been working with myself and Ed to come up with a plan for testing that Ben is going to lead and work on with us. So we met again with Ben since the last call. He's currently creating a plan to propose for testing, and we're looking into how we can put some staffing towards that as well. So we'll give you some more updates as and when, and I'm also posting updates to the desktop mailing list on that. So you should be able to keep on top of updates that way.
Can I also jump in here with a question? When I read this as, let's say, if I act like let's say non-technical user and look at testing, can you maybe elaborate slightly on what kind of testing are we talking about? Because obviously, I mean, there's testing like, I don't know, you run some scripts and then you get some results, and it's like you share some hardware dump, and then basically you can tell whether things are working or not. I suppose this kind of testing, we're actually talking about having human testing, like where you have a checklist that you basically follow something and then you assess the results and share that. Or what kind of testing are we talking about here?
Yeah, it's human beings doing human things with the laptop functionality that we are developing. So the idea is that it's to make sure that we're catching like gaps between different parts of the experience, but also it's partly kind of like smoke testing on different laptops that the volunteers would have available. At the moment, it's as I say, the proposal isn't yet in place, and so we have a lot of possible different ways of approaching it. What we're going to do, I think, is try to keep it very focused initially on the actual project, the output of the project. But ideally, it would be a sort of muscle that the project could develop and keep going even beyond this particular project. So we're hoping that that is a possibility.
So if I understand this correctly, just to reiterate what I'm hearing, basically, yes, on the one hand side, on the FreeBSD Foundations project, for laptop project, we have a focus, for example, on the Framework 13 notebook, or 16, I don't know, and on the Ryzen-based ones. But at the same time, the usability testing will also look beyond that, is what I'm hearing. Is that right?
Where exactly the line will be at the moment, I'm not entirely sure.
Okay, got it.
It'll depend on sort of how much there is to do and what's available.
Okay,
I
makes
think
sense.
it will have to be, yeah.
Okay.
I don't know, Ed, whether you have anything to add to that, because it would pretty. It's not nailed down yet.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, broadly speaking, we would like to test on as large a variety of hardware as we can, but our commitment is to test on the set that is in the supported list. So I guess I would describe it as we will test on at least the ones that are in the supported list.
Makes sense. Yeah. All right. Perfect. Thank you. Sorry for interrupting you.
No, good questions. You're probably asking what other people are thinking, right?
All right. One more.
Yeah, that one's just useful links, so we don't really need to explain that one, but it's in the slide deck for convenience.
All right. Perfect. All right. And with that, we're back at the areas of interest. Thank you, Alice.
Thank you, Chris.
All right. Well, before we move into the stuff that I have prepared, I would like to ask around if anybody on the call wants to bring anything, ask any questions, any call for actions. Does anybody? Yes, please, Alexander. Go ahead.
Hey, everyone. So I've been thinking about this the last few days. And so in the handbook X11 chapter, where I'm telling the reader to select their graphics driver and then giving them the instructions to enable it, I'm wondering if maybe that's the wrong approach based on investigating, just following the threads, help desk chat threads, and so on and so forth. I'm wondering if what I should be doing is telling the reader to follow the instructions in the package message, right? Because the package message tells them to enable the driver in their RC conf and also tells them if there's some other thing they need to do, like NVIDIA has to set mode setting to CTL in loader conf, right? So that information is in the package message, but it's also in the handbook. And sometimes at later points, there will be situations where the user will ask for help and we'll be like, okay, you didn't do what it said to do in the package message. We know because we've seen this before. And so I'm wondering if by duplicating the instructions in the handbook, if it is actually training them not to read the package message. And so, yeah, I just wanted to float that by everyone and see, because everyone I've said that to has been like interesting and said nothing else.
Anybody want to reply to that? Otherwise, I'm gonna chime in. I'm thinking if you look at the handbook and sorry, yeah, please. Yeah, of course, there's people. There you go. TJ, is it TJ?
Hey, it's not really a direct response to this comment, but I do think the interface of package messages is terrible. They just go away, and if you're not observing an install or an upgrade, you lose all this information. And the system should have a way to at least, alert users they're there, whether it's a terrible email to root or something else, and then that would at least encourage the behavior you want, where there's package messages, but they can be read rather than them just being lost, because right now they just disappear.
Good point, yeah. Jean-Sébastien?
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that the package message user experience is worse than what we could have in the handbook directly. I think that the handbook is far better to describe how it works and what the user may have to do with examples and so on. I think and it's also unified, like instead of spread across several package messages, which might not have the same level of quality or the same rhythm of updates and so on. So.
Also, if I'm not mistaken, there's a difference between, I mean, at least there's a possibility to differentiate between whether you're installing a package or upgrading a package. You could get different messages, if I'm not mistaken. But obviously, this could be beneficial. I don't know. But Alexander, you also raised your hand.
So we have a command in package that will replay package messages. And it seems like maybe it could be easy to extend that to say if it does print a package message, then, print F at the end of the package process, there were package messages. That way, even if they somehow missed it through various reasonable ways, then they could see that, okay, there were package messages from these packages, and we could replay them this way.
Also, good point. I might have a stupid counter question. Right now, we're asking ourselves whether we should be pointing the handbook to the PKG message. Why don't we think, or would it be an option to think about pointing the PKG message at the handbook? Question mark. I don't know. Christos, I think you had did you have your hand off? Hand up? Sorry.
I did, but I'm trying to reconsider. Maybe that's a good question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. So I think that's not very related to what we're talking about, but it's related to the handbook. So I think it would be a good idea to have in the installing FreeBSD, I think it's called, the article. It's one of the first articles of the handbook. How to do manual partitioning of disks. And since Alexander brought up the handbook issues, so I thought it would be good to mention it, because I guess some people would like to have manual partitioning instead of just doing the auto ZFS, auto UFS, or and just occupying the whole disk. And some people like me, for example, I wanted to find how can I manually partition through the installer. I know how to do it in a shell, but we also have an option, manual partitioning, that, if I don't remember correctly, it's not explained. It just says that there is a manual partitioning thing, but it doesn't really tell you how to do it. Now, I might be wrong, so someone can correct me.
Actually, I have to admit, I have not really very often used the manual partitioning option. Usually, if I would be partitioning something manually, I would just do it with Gpart myself, if I were using GPT-based partitioning. But I mean, obviously, you're right. If there's something missing in that area, then probably it would make sense to add that.
It's not a good experience.
So what I wanted to do exactly that I couldn't find, I still haven't found, is how to create a ZFS on root partition, but use part of the disk only. Well, so let's say you have a big disk, I don't know, 2 terabytes, and you want to use only 1 terabyte of this disk for ZFS on root, and the rest you just want it for, I don't know, dual boot, whatever. Yeah, that is not explained, and you have to do it manually through a shell. And I guess for most people who might want to dual boot on a single disk, that is
too much. Yeah.
Yeah, probably it's too much.
Alexander, yeah, please. Sorry.
I will definitely review such a path quite promptly if anyone sends it.
Okay, there is a call for action, I would say. All right. I think we're hearing that. All right, so we have clearly a suggestion to, look at the partitioning. I will put that on my to-do list if I have some time on the weekend. Let's see. Coming back to your question, Alexander, in terms of putting stuff into the handbook that is actually also on PKG message. I think from what I'm hearing, it might still make sense to have things in the handbook because ports can change, messages can get dropped. And I mean, the handbook obviously is a standout documentation, particularly in terms of having consistency and reliability, that this is the go-to place where you will have the information in one area, isn't it? I mean, I would at least expect that. Yeah, sure, Alexander, please.
Yeah, the consensus sounds good to me. I've been struggling with this for the last couple of days, and I appreciate the consensus we have here, and I will struggle with this no longer. Thanks, guys.
That's good. All right, great. Coming back to this slide. Here we go. All right. Anyone else wants to bring anything? Call for action. So we had one call for action, obviously, to check out the partitioning documentation on the installer and how to do it manually, maybe in the handbook. That is definitely a great suggestion. Anything else that you guys want to bring? Please, here we go.
You mentioned it already, and I think I should say a few more words about Wi-Fi bits that are both on the wireless mailing list and lately on desktop. So for HD and VHD, we need a dependency which is first to have hardware crypto support, and I encourage anyone with an Intel IVL Wi-Fi field tag RTW88 or 89 to test that. The links are on the desktop mailing list, they are on the wireless mailing list, and they are on the Foundation GitHub to the threads on how to do that. And if you have a modern IWL Wi-Fi chipset that is AX200 or newer, then you could test HD and VH.
Is there any? Sorry, please go ahead.
Yeah, as you mentioned, some people have done so and found it working. The usual things have shown up, but small bits or unsurprising bits with 12-year-old crypto stuff, which I hadn't expected anymore, but that will be worked on this.
Is there any particular chipset that you would recommend people have? Or, I mean, I remember, I think there was like the Intel A201 or 210, I cannot remember, that is like, that has been built into some of the frameworks, if I remember correctly. That is also IWL, right?
So the Intel bits AX200, AX210, the numbers in between, and then there's BE200 these days as well out. Those would work. That's the modern ones, which is basically anything newer than, I don't know, last 5-6 years at least. If you have an older Intel, which is 9,000 something, 8,000 something or older, they won't work yet. They need more work for HD and VH. But it would be good to test the crypto stuff anyway, because
Okay. All right. So please, people, test. I will actually have to dig because I replaced my own wireless chipset with an older one with an IWN based one, if I remember correctly, or IWN. I cannot remember, but I know I have some AX device lying around somewhere, so I will go looking for that. All right. Anybody else? Any questions? Any call for actions? Any items that you want to bring and present or discuss? Alexander, yes, please go ahead.
So for X11 desktop stack, I think that people should be configuring things atomically so that, at least as a suggestion, of course they can do whatever they want, but in the handbook, I'm recommending that they do atomic configuration. And so on that note, I rewrote the set XKB map manual up to, I think, very good BSD standards, with a diagnostic section of common error messages, how to fix them, examples section, and also a more, I think, direct introduction that also mentions where to find the options and in layouts, and that is also available for review right now on the FreeBSD, no, not the FreeBSD, the freedesktop.org, up at the actual Git repo for that. It's it's a small piece of the desktop stack, but for me, set XKB map option control no caps has always been the most important thing for me to pick up. Open source desktop and be able to use it. So, yeah, it's a small thing, but that's open for review now on my people.freebsd.org. In my draft section, I have a rendered to HTML version of that you guys can check out, and also a link to the review. If anybody would like to, analyze that and maybe criticize it so we can make it a little bit better, that would be very appreciated. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for bringing that. Unless anybody has anything else, I would like to raise awareness on item number 3, maybe really quickly. I'm going to open this up here really quickly. Most of us probably know this page. It's the laptops page on the wiki, and it is actually quite, in my opinion, quite there's quite elaborate. Let's say there's a bunch of information there, and I remember, for example, I've been using an X270, and this is one of the old ones, but it just works great. At the same time, very often I look at this page, aside from it not being perfectly legible. So I will look at the coding behind that and maybe think whether we can improve this somehow. But what I would like to also suggest, particularly for all of us who are now working with laptop computers, or potentially, well, this is primarily about laptops. So if anybody of us is working with a laptop that is not listed here, please consider either adding it, particularly in terms of, okay, what works and what doesn't work and what needs tweaking. And if you don't have a wiki user, then I don't know, please maybe share the information with me. I would be happy to put that in here if it is missing, or maybe if something is outdated because maybe something suddenly starts working with the latest release of FreeBSD, then I think that is also worth putting in here. And I believe this is the usual place that very quickly gets forgotten to get updated, because one checks once if you have it, or if you have the computer in a listing, but once you believe it's not working, or once you believe it is working to some degree, you might not be rechecking afterwards. After, I don't know, doing 2 or 3 major upgrades, you suddenly realize, okay, things are actually have improved. And for the sake of awareness and making people aware that FreeBSD is a viable option, and I think a page like that should be helpful, because if I'm not completely mistaken, if you Google FreeBSD and laptops, this is definitely also one of the pages that does come up, and I expect people will be looking at that. So let's please also maybe spend a couple minutes to check that out. All right. With that, anybody else who wants to say something or bring anything else to the table? As a matter of fact, maybe let's take a quick look at the worksheet together, whether I missed anything. We have this great column K here for the updates that people are bringing today. We already had the FreeBSD Foundation's updates here. These are listed here in detail. I put my own work in here, but otherwise there does not seem anything that people brought. There was some work previously for work on fonts, as I can see here. Not sure. I think Alfonso is probably not on the call at the moment, but if there has been any progress, maybe it might be worthwhile to share if there has been any update. So Alfonso, if you see this, if you watch this, then we would appreciate an update maybe. All right. Unless anybody has anything else, I would like to jump to a couple of questions that I have brought. So we already talked about the documentation. We already talked about reviewing, yes, and then we already talked about the laptop. So finally, I would like to come back to something that I started also on the mailing list with the conversation, and I think there's been some great inputs there and some great questions, and I have some counter questions basically, which I think are worthwhile to first address here on the call, because it's kind of a smaller group of people to cross-check. So I started this work on this kernel module, and yes, arguably this is not the go-to solution for FreeBSD. I want to point out, I started this because I myself am running on a very lightweight window manager. On my desktop, I kind of arguably are an old fart. I use something that looks like CDE, but is based on FWM3. And on my notebook, I use DWM from Suckless. And that thing is so bare bones, there is no screen dimming. And with that kernel module, I finally have that. And there is great ideas to, improve that slightly further, like having the keys for the screen dimming actually react properly to basically dim up and dim down. I think I can actually build that in, and I will probably do this at least for my own use. And I'm not saying that this is the right approach. I've put it up on GitHub. I've also looked, because out of curiosity, how to deal with video playback. And, I kind of started this also as a learning experience for myself to better understand the so-called, what I call the problem space, basically. And with that, yeah, Christos, please go ahead.
Sorry, I know you said it's not the point to be a go-to solution, but I was thinking, wouldn't it make more sense to patch the WM instead and provide I think they have a patches page or something, so wouldn't it make sense to have it there instead of I'm thinking, if someone runs this module but with a window manager that does screen dimming, is there a problem there if these two interfere?
That is exactly the point that was also made, I think, on the mailing list. And that is a very valid point. I think if you use something like that with KDE and GNOME, unless you have some way of, basically make it realize that it shouldn't be doing what it's, doing, then it's just going to potentially break the functionality. That is completely right. What I did at the moment, I basically put a sysctl in that also allows you to kind of block the dimming or turn it off temporarily. This is also the way I do it, for example, for video playback, because I have this kind of small utility and user space now that ties into dbus and checks for VLC signals where it says, okay, it's starting video playback, it's stopping video playback, and while it plays back the video, it kind of disables the functionality of the module. And could DWM be patched? That is a very good question. Yes, probably yes. The main thing with DWM, at least my understanding, looking at how suckless works, is that basically, and I'm not expecting that they put my patches in when I add. But I think in terms of their philosophy, what DWM is and does, it is kind of bare bones, and it's a pro and con of DWM, you could argue. And yes, technically speaking, you're right. It could probably be patched to build something in to do that also in user space, I suppose. I have not checked that code in that much detail, but that little bit that I did, it probably is possible. Okay, now I need to check first. I think it was Mark. Please go ahead. You raised your hand.
Yeah, I just wanted to interject that I'm finding it useful running in a terminal-only mode, for the VT terminal, primarily because I'm making changes to the kernel, rebooting, not really bringing up a desktop environment at all. And so I think that that's another use case. Over the years, I've had numerous terminals show up with a command prompt sitting there burned into it. So, trying to not do that to a laptop is a wonderful thing.
That is a good point. Yeah. All right, Alexander, please.
Just a historical trivia. Back in the day when we used to have syscons actually had lots of screensavers.
That is a very good point. Actually, I was also checking out the syscons driver out of curiosity, how it does the I think it was the logo code that I was looking at, and there was something else I cannot remember. Yeah, Alexander, please, of course, go ahead.
I just want to say, when I was a kid, that was so cool. Syscons was so cool.
Well, it went kind of the way of the dodo. It's still there, but if I remember correctly, it does not work with UEFI boot. If I remember correctly, it only works with BIOS. So yeah, sure, please, Alexander.
I think that's correct.
So if you use a modern machine, you're kind of straight out of luck with that one. But I mean, yeah. I even tried that. I made the mistake. I think I tried it with Beehive, but Beehive obviously UEFI, and then yeah, things didn't work. But code is still there, so there's still room for learnings there. So yeah, I mean, you guys are making absolutely valid points both ways, obviously, and as such, basically, I don't expect this to be, particularly useful beyond what we have learned here for people who are using either just straight a console, or people who are using something so lightweight that they don't feel like patching things. And what I want to point out is, if you were using DWM and I was patching DWM, then the problem space would be solved for DWM. The way I did it, it will at least also work for, I don't know, i3 or OpenBox, what is it called? There's a bunch like these lightweight window managers who just don't have that kind of functionality built in. And I'm planning to at least bring it into ports. I think I have that on the next slide if I'm not mistaken. And then people can choose whatever they think is the better way of doing things. I'm pretty certain that for users of KDE and GNOME, I don't see how that is gonna work without contrived connections and interfaces. I at least wouldn't be able to think something up, because I'm just not experienced enough particularly with KDE, because KDE isn't in one of the focus areas for the Foundations Lab project, if I remember correctly. So I'm putting it out there. If anybody has any additional insights or additional feedback, I would love to hear it. I completely understand that this is not a generic serves all solution. And actually, also the one use case that was mentioned also in one of the recent calls, was it on? No, actually, I think it was on the mailing list, and I think this is also a very, very good example because I just did not cross that use case. But yes, if I have my notebook and if I attach a screen and a keyboard, and I'm working on the monitor, and I have my laptop sitting right next to me, then I don't want the keys and the typing on the monitor actually right up the laptop screen. I would still want it to stay quiet. And technically speaking, I can address that even with the kernel code that I have at the moment. But yes, it will require additional, functionality, coding, and special cases to be addressed. And every step of the way, it grows in complexity and it makes things slightly more complicated, which obviously was not the idea and was not the intention of what I was building. So, and what I should also point out, this is why it's called framework. I have this framework and I have this framework notebook, and the original idea was actually, okay, I wanted to look at ways, to consolidate some of the functionalities that I have spread around and spread across multiple scripts and applications that I've built for myself to tune and fine-tune the power usage of my notebook. I figured there might be a more efficient way, to have that in a kernel module that just switches things to my needs. But I completely understand that this is not something that necessarily is a well, how to say it, a scenario that works for every or not even a generic user, let's say a non-technical user. So in that term, it is primarily a learning experience and learning and a better understanding of the problem space. And as such, I would argue this kind of conversation is also beneficial and helpful. And I hope it's helpful to you guys as much as it is to me. Yeah. All right. Anybody else got anything? Otherwise, let's check. Sorry, there was. Yes, Alexander, please go ahead.
So I just want to call attention to Christos's path to rewrite DSP as a OSS mixer. I'm so excited about this. I don't know if anybody else is really excited about this. Not my work to be bringing to the table, but I don't care. This is so exciting. Thanks.
So to this, I would really like more reviews, more feedback on this. So if you can, wait, I'm gonna send you the review so that people can go and test it maybe.
Yes, please share the link.
Here in the chat.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Let's open this up really quickly. All right. So there's already a couple feedback points. All right, that looks nice. Okay, great. So everyone, please consider taking a look at that. Perfect. Anybody got anything else? Otherwise, I think we can check out our next meeting schedule. We are going to stick to every second Wednesday on a monthly basis. I would suggest we stick with the 10 a.m. or 1 p.m. Pacific Eastern time and move things. Oh, actually, sorry. So this is I put it right and wrong. this is great. I will update the slides. This is a great confusion. So it's gonna stick with 5 p.m. UTC. I want to say because this is gonna be 10 a.m. Pacific time, 1 p.m. Eastern time. This is gonna move into 7 p.m. in Austria, in my location, in my time zone. So this is going to be coming. This will turn into a slightly more possible even for people further east. But as I said before, I already set up a survey. It's linked right here. It will be in the slides, where I would like to ask around what alternative time, let's say, is still kind of feasible. And what I did, actually, let me see if I can click on that slide to show you really quickly. Basically, it looks like this. And what I would like to ask you guys, basically, to just differentiate, this works not at all for you guys. So I'm going back up to 7 a.m. in Pacific time, which might be already slightly early for some, late risers. Works for me, obviously, is an easy answer. And if you have a preferred option where you say, okay, this would be where we would like to keep it, then just use the preferred option. If you prefer, for example, to please don't change it, then just stick with the 5 p.m. UTC where we are at the moment, and we will go with the majority most likely, as long as we manage to have everyone from the FreeBSD Foundation also on board, because I think this is also very important, very, very good to have those updates and to have that conversation that we have going throughout the calls. All right, and with that, let me check. I would like to remind all of us, particularly those people who were not able to join, please, there is a worksheet on the various areas of interest, and yes, we will improve that, because right now, obviously, we have a bunch of items there collected throughout a couple of calls, and through the survey, where we have items on there that are not being actively worked, and I think it will make sense to start chopping some things off, so we don't just keep carrying various items that are actually not really having the necessary focus. And then we will figure out how to orphan those over the next few weeks by drafting up a governance process for the Enterprise Working Group, as well as for the Laptop Test Working Group for Ludwig. Hopefully the same process, and we will come up with the draft and discuss it, hopefully in the next call, basically. And if you have work, please feel free to add it. If you want to contribute, if you want to bring stuff to the table, feel free to add it into the worksheet that is open for review as well as for entry. Please keep watching the FreeBSD Foundation's project. As soon as Alice announces the usability testing group, please consider joining the effort. And otherwise, remember, there's the mailing list, there's forums, there's Discord I should probably add. There's so many other channels where you can talk and reflect and have great conversations like these that we have on this call about the use of FreeBSD on the laptop and desktop space. And finally, we are basically at the end, a little early this time, as expected, I suppose, because of the fact, as I said before, we kind of had a compressed timetable from the recent call. Instead of the usual 4 weeks, we actually only had like 2 and something, maybe 3, not even, I think, since the last call. So this time it's not as much talk about like the last time, which is understandable. I think most of us are just volunteers, let's say. All right. Anybody wants to say anything closing? Otherwise, I have the usual closing words. Please like and subscribe to FreeBSD and maybe also the Foundation's YouTube channel. See you next time, and thank you for joining.
Thank you. Goodbye.